Hey everybody, Crawler XP here, and if you're here, that means you're interested in the Warrior class for Guild Wars 2. It is my favorite class. I have played it literally exclusively since launch. I did take a break for a while, but that's just me. I like Warriors in every game I play, honestly. Sometimes I switch them out for the Mage classes every once in a while, but normally I love the Warrior class. So if you're here to check it out too. Maybe you started one already, maybe you're thinking of starting one, maybe you just want some advice, maybe you just are interested in trying to learn more, which is always good. It's always nice. And maybe you have checked out the Warrior subforum on the official Guild Wars 2 forum site, and if you have, God bless you. It's not a good place to be. It's not a good neighborhood. It's certainly not encouraging. Anyway, it's just not. So there are a lot of complaints that float around on that forum, some of them valid, some of them not so valid. It's a great way to get discouraged, honestly. I go there and I get discouraged sometimes. So, but if you're here, you're interested in it, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more today. So yeah, and I apologize if this seems as not quite a professional video as some of the other ones maybe I've put out or will put out or have put out. But that's because this is not. This is kind of an impromptu thing. At the behest of some people that I met online and some people from the guild, and they ask me often what build do I use and what do I think of the Warrior, because they know that I play it all the time. What are the roles? What does it do well? What does it not do well? Things like that. So I decided to make a video very quick. This is just a quickie. So yeah, when the Monster Party review comes out soon, hopefully, I'm about halfway done with it now. I have been working on it, but it's a ton of editing. I've spent literally 20 plus hours on it already, and I'm only about halfway done. And it'll probably be between 20 and 25 minutes. But when that comes out, it'll be much more professional than this. I wrote a script for that. I did a lot of audio splicing, leveling, things like that to remove dead space, silent space, and things like that. But not in this one. This one's just a quickie, like I said. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to introduce you to the different weapons that are available to the Warrior, the armors, stat types, and generally an overview of how the game works and how that affects you and your roles as the Warrior and the possible roles that you can fill. So if you're here because you want to play the Warrior for PvE, that is, fighting monsters generally in the game world, or you want to play dungeons, fine. If you're here for World versus World, you want to use the Warrior there, okay. If you're here for competitive PvP, you want to use the Warrior in the arena and PvP tournaments, I really can't help you. I'm sorry. I don't do those. I really don't enjoy them. I don't enjoy competitive PvP really in anything. Even when I played WoW, I despised the arena. I never really enjoyed it. I liked the other forms of PvP, but arenas never interested me really. So I really can't help you with that. And from what I understand, the Warrior is probably not the best first choice for competitive PvP in this game anyway, and I would tend to agree with that. A lot of other classes are much better suited to one-on-one combat than the Warrior is, just because of his kite ability in all but a few build choices. So yeah, if you're here for anything but that, we're going to take a look today. As you can see, down here we have the UI I have set up, and it's taking up a large part of your screen. I apologize for that, but this is the important part. This is what I want to show you. I will have examples of how the weapons work in combat, so you can see the skills being used, you can see their range, you can see, what they look like, their animations, things like that, because if you want anything less, you can go to a forum post and check out, what the Warrior is like and the different skills, and you can read it up on the wiki. But here, the purpose of a video is for me to show you these things, so that's what I'm going to do. And while I'm explaining here, hopefully I have something interesting in the background. Maybe I'll throw in a Karka run or something. But yeah. So here we are, and you can see down here I have right now the only weapon that I have equipped is the axe in my main hand. And so in Guild Wars 2, your main hand weapon determines your first 3 skills on your bar. Here we have the axe auto attack. The first one in your slot, as far as I understand, is always the auto attack, at least for Warriors it seems to be. And so here we have chop, double chop, and triple chop, as you can see. And it does a fair amount of damage. I've seen records and spreadsheets posted on the forums that indicate that over time it does less damage, obviously, than the greatsword traded with 100 blades, but not so much so as to be shameful. So the damage is good, and it also allows you to move, which is good. So it lets you corral your enemies, it lets you get them into good positions, and it lets you dodge while you're dealing your damage. So if you want burst damage, maybe this isn't your weapon choice, but If you want nice average over time damage, this is a pretty good option. And that's why I use it. I don't like being rooted in place with the greatsword when I'm using my most damaging attacks. So we have this, the auto attack. The next attack is an AoE. It does a little bit of damage, but it also stacks vulnerability, which is the point. As you can see, 4 vulnerability. If both hits go off, this will, when you spin, it will hit the target twice. As you can see, damage 2 times. And on each hit, it will apply 2 stacks of vulnerability. So if it gets both hits on your target, it's going to apply 4. If it only gets 1, it's going to apply 2. And it increases the target's incoming damage by 4%. 1 stack of vulnerability, 1% plus incoming damage. Pretty simple. It also has the World Combo finisher, which is nice. And if you want to learn more about those, there are other places you can go. I'm not going to talk too much about combos and combo fields and finishers in here, but they are nice and they are important if you can use them well. The range is small on this, as you can see here, range 130. Here, range 130. That is basically in-your-face melee range. And then over here we have the Throw Axe skill, which is going to do not really very much damage, but its point is it has a 900 range and a cripple, which slows your target by 50%. So if you have a target that's running away, nice option. You can use this. So those are your first 3 skills with the axe. Over here you can see we have 2 more open slots. And if this is your first time using a weapon, you will only have 1 attack available to you if this is your first time with the character using a weapon. As you get kills with that weapon, very quickly, very quickly, you will unlock permanently the rest of the skills. So if I equip something else, for example, if I put another axe in my offhand, I can do this. Now you can see I still have those same first 3 attacks here, but I also have 2 new ones. These are my offhand attacks. These are determined entirely by what weapon I have in my offhand, if I'm wielding one-handed things. In the case of the axe, dual strike. As you can see, strike your foe with both weapons, gain fury with each hit. Cool. You will gain fury if you hit enemies with this. More enemies, more fury, which is nice. Fury is 20% critical chance, which is great, except if you're using other skills with the warrior, for example, For Great Justice and Signet of Rage, this becomes kind of a moot point. It's nice, but you're basically going to have fury all the time just with these 2. Not totally 100% uptime, maybe unless you have boon duration, which is something else to talk about, I'll mention later, but it is nice to have it here if you find that you need it. I used it a lot when I was leveling, things like that, so it's kind of a cool skill. It doesn't deal very much damage compared to your auto attack, but it does give you fury, which is nice. Here we have Whirling Axe, which was really nice. Some time ago it didn't have a hit cap, which is cool, which means it could hit as many targets as were available around you in its range, which was nice. But then they capped it at, what, 5 or 7 targets or something now, I think? I don't even know. But it does still have its uses. Admittedly, it was a lot more useful before they made changes to the Omnom Berry foods, which would give you lifesteal on crit. It now has an internal cooldown, that food. Before that, this skill, Whirling Axe, if you had a high critical rate, became a heal button. You use it with 2+ targets around you and you would full heal almost instantly. You can't do that anymore, but it still does have its uses. For example, it doesn't deal great damage, but it deals okay damage, and it deals it to a large number of targets around you, not only in front of you, not only on either side, but behind you as well. And while you're spinning, you can dodge. This is important to note. One of the main draws of this skill, beyond the number of targets that it can hit comparatively with other warrior skills with these weapons, is that you can dodge while you're using it, which is nice. So if you're in the middle of a group of enemies that, say, can stun or knock down or knock back, you can be dodging and using this attack, which lets you deal damage and avoid damage at the same time, which is cool. Honestly, I don't use this very much anymore. I don't use the axe offhand a whole lot since they made changes to the Omnom Berry. But it does still have its uses, honestly. It really does. Occasionally, if I know I'm in a group of enemies that they aren't really going to kill me, but they do have a lot of annoying crowd control techniques that I want to dodge and still want to deal damage, it's a fair option to use this occasionally, or for fun. So these are the two-handed. This is with axe in both hands. Main hand and offhand. You get these skills. So let's switch it up. Let's try something else. If I have a sword, now you can see in my offhand I still have my axe, so I still have these two skills. But now I have 3 new skills because my main-handed weapon is a sword, a one-handed sword. You can do this if you're not familiar with Guild Wars 2. You can mix and match So if you like the offhanded skills from one weapon, but the main-handed skills from another, you can mix and you can match, find something you enjoy, find something that's fun for you. So here, you can see we have strike your foe with a final powerful thrust, bleed your foe with a ghast, bleed your foe with a slash. The sword is based around bleed damage, far and away. It's a bleeding weapon. Its burst skill here, flurry. I'll go back, I forgot. I'll talk about the axe burst skill. The flurry skill, immobilize your foes with a flurry of bleeding strikes, effect increases with adrenaline level. Yes, it stacks bleeds. Again, 8 bleeds on here, which is nice. Here, it stacks bleeds on every strike but the last one. And if you have the offhand sword skills, which we'll look at in a minute, you can stack even more bleeds. The sword is a bleeder weapon, and it's nice, it's fun. I had some use out of it for a while. If you stack condition damage, which increases your bleed damage, it could be a nice choice. However, if you're in a party of people, bear in mind, the number of bleed stacks on any enemy caps at 25, no matter who's stacking them. It can only have 25 stacks coming from any number of sources. So if you and your buddy are both bleed-based builds, that enemy is going to have 25 stacks, and any more bleeds you apply after that are wasted because they don't apply. So the main downside to this is if you have more than one person applying bleeds in a group and you can hit max stacks by yourself, you're not doing anything, really. You're wasting the largest part of your damage in your build. However, I will say, this skill, Savage Leap, lunge at your foe and strike them with your sword. This is a great gap closer if you are going for PvP with a warrior, or if you want to do single target in world versus world, which I really don't understand, but some people insist on doing it. Or building around it anyway. Savage Leap, it lets you get right in close to your enemy really quickly. It's a great gap closer. Warriors need these because the bulk of our damage and the bulk of our builds come from melee damage. So it's nice for getting close, and you'll see that. And there are some warriors who use this to great effect combined with some other weapons and offhands. And here we have the hamstring, which cripples your foe. Basic stock warrior skill. Cripple your foe, lower their movement speed, prevent them from getting away. But in this game, cripples are so easy to remove. Yeah, it's almost not even worth it most of the time. Nice sometimes, not always so great. So if we take another sword and we put it in the offhand, like this, you can see now we have an impale skill. Throw your sword at your foe and apply multiple stacks of bleeding over time. Again, you'll apply 4 bleeds here. You can rip it from your opponent, deal extra damage, which is nice. And then here, this skill, you'll block your next attack, and then if the opponent attacks you, you block it, you counterattack and apply 4 bleeds. If they don't, you gain adrenaline from using the skill, which is nice. Adrenaline for the warrior can serve a lot of purposes, if you aren't aware. You can trait for it to give you different bonuses. For example, raise your overall damage, raise your critical chance, raise your healing ability. And the higher your adrenaline goes, the stronger your burst skills. Dual swords, I've seen people use. It is far and away a PvE build when people do use it. It is not great in PvP or world versus world, from what I understand. Mainly because whether you have 1 stack of bleed on an enemy or 25, 1 cleanse and it's all gone. And cleanses are so common in this game that it's a big risk. So, use it at your own risk. But hey, if you enjoy it, go for it. One of the things I always tell people about this game, do what you enjoy, play what you like. If you're here to min-max, fine, but don't get on other people's cases about it. Don't go crazy about it. It's a game, folks. Come on, chill out. Let's have some fun. So pick a build that you like. I've played a lot of them, believe me. And a lot of them are a lot of fun. So, hey. Now, I told you that I would talk about the axe burst skill, and I forgot to do that before. So I'll do it now. The axe burst skill here is Eviscerate, and it is one of the most useful burst skills that the warrior has for his weapons. It does a lot of damage. It really does. The damage numbers you're seeing here are low just because you know what? No, they're not. They're not. I forgot. I forgot where I was for a minute. I thought I was in a different zone. I'm in Lion's Arch, so it's giving me the 80 numbers, which is nice. The damage numbers are good. They're not as high for me as some other warriors as you're gonna see because I'm not a berserk build. I don't have a whole lot of damage increasers, maybe like crit percent damage, things like that. I know they're very, very effective and blah blah blah. I'm not gonna go into builds here, but if you are interested in my build, you can. I play on Devona's Rest server. I play for the Wings of Salvation Guild. and my build will be posted in their forum. I'm not big on posting things in the Warrior sub forum on the site, only because it's a great place to get discouraged. It's a bad part of town. There's somebody waving at me. Yeah, hi. Yeah, so I won't post it in the main forums, on the sub forums there, but I will post it in our guild forums. I get the question a lot when people see me in pickup groups or in Overworld or something. They ask me a lot what build that I use, and if you see me play, it is a banner build, but it's very different from a lot of banner builds. It's tweaked to death. So if you want to check it out, the guild's looking for people almost all the time, so come on, say hi, join up, you can check it out. But let's check out some other weapons that we got. So we've done axes, we've done swords, we've done the Warhorn. How about maces? You can see I have a mace in my main hand and my offhand here. So the main hand skills for the mace. First you have the first skill in the chain, smashes your foe, does some damage. Second one, bash your foe, does some damage. Third one, pulverize, does a fair amount of damage and inflicts weakness, which lowers endurance regeneration, which is what lets your opponent dodge. And 50% fumble chance, which means it'll have the damage that it does. There are changes upcoming to weakness from what I understand. Currently, it does not apply to critical hits. So if you have weakness and you're dealing critical hits, it's as good as if you don't have weakness. It doesn't matter. But from what I understand, soon it will. That it will apply to critical damage as well, which is good and bad for the warrior, I guess. There are points on both sides of that one. But here, yeah, the main problem with the mace main hand auto attack like this is that it's very slow. It is painfully slow. It's like you're using a hammer. It's that slow. But if you can deal with that, it's not bad. And for reasons we'll see here in a minute, it has some potential. For example, this skill, which is another counter blow skill, you'll block, counter attack if the enemy hits you. If not, you get some adrenaline, which is nice. It's basically a one-time block. The cooldown, however, not great. Yeah, not so great. That's the problem with a lot of warrior skills. The cooldowns are really bad sometimes. Here we have Pommel Bash, daze your foe, which is a nice interrupt. The daze, as you can see, is pretty short at 1 second, but it is a nice interrupt. If you see somebody casting or channeling something, you can interrupt them with this, which is cool. Your offhand skills with the mace, here we have Crushing Blow, which will inflict vulnerability on your target, which is cool. 10 seconds, 4% incoming damage, always nice. And here at Tremor, send a wave toward your foe, knock them down. So this will hit as many foes as it passes through, as far as I understand. I've never tested it on more than 5, but it'll hit as many foes as it passes through, which is cool. The damage is low, but it knocks down, which is great. It has a long cooldown though, which makes it, again, not as useful as it could have been. Here, Skull Crack, stun your foe, again, another interrupt, which is cool. A longer stun, depending on how much adrenaline you have. If you don't know, if you have 1, 2, 3 bars of adrenaline, you use your skill, and you have 0. Once you use the skill, you're reset back to 0 adrenaline, so bear in mind. So yes, these are the mace skills that we have here. And then, a lot of people enjoy the shield. Shield is only an offhand weapon, like the Warhorn. They cannot be main hand, they are always offhand. And with the shield, you get Shield Bash, which is a nice gap closer. Small gaps, and it's a stun, which is an interrupt, and it keeps your opponent from running away for a second. What a lot of people will do is they will use this skill to stun the opponent, and then immediately switch to another weapon like the hammer to further lock down the opponent with knockdowns and interrupts and knockbacks and stuns. So this is a great combo opener if you want to use it that way. Here's the block skill. Obviously you have a shield, so you get a block skill. Makes you impervious to incoming attacks for 3 seconds. I think if someone else, however, another warrior is using Signet of Might, it makes their attacks unblockable, so they can still hit you through this, I think. Not sure. I don't use the shield a lot, so I'm not entirely sure on that one. I haven't tried it since they made the changes to Signet of Might. Other weapons that the warrior has at his disposal. The ever-popular Greatsword. You can see this one here. For example, the strikes with the Greatsword. Your auto attack inflicts vulnerability with all but the last swing. The attacks are slow, but that's okay. Out of my face. There we go. The attacks are slow, but that's okay. The auto attack is not the draw of the Greatsword. It's its other attacks. 100 Blades, for example. Everyone will use this skill. This is the reason people use the Greatsword, other than the mobility that it provides, is this attack. If you get a speed increaser like a Frenzy, something that gives you quickness, even since quickness has been nerfed, or changed rather, this skill is really, really powerful. If you get the hits off with it, it's great, and if you traded for it, even better, because it deals more damage, has a shorter cooldown, and stacks might on you every time you get a critical hit, which is wonderful. Boon duration builds and certain Berserker builds can max 25 stacks of might with this easily. So yeah, good to keep in mind. 100 Blades, everybody talks about it. It's a really popular skill. Whirlwind attack, the damage is nice. I find this useful in PvE. If you have a target who's against a wall, you can whirl at them and hit them with all the strikes of this, which deals good damage. But the real draw of it is that it provides invulnerability frames. It's as good as a dodge. You can't be hit while you're doing it. So you can use this to whirl through enemies, deal damage, and dodge at the same time, which is great. It is ground targeted. The target starts on you and an arrow points out in the direction that you want to go. Target, click, and you're off. This skill here throws your sword, Blade Trail. It's just kind of nice, provides a cripple against your enemy. If you do it right, you can hit it. You can get it to hit enemies in a line as it goes and as it comes back, which is cool. So you can hit them twice with it and deal actually decent damage at the same time. And here, Rush, which is not a great skill to getting close to it. Like, it is a gap closer, but you can be stopped in the middle of it. So, like if you get rooted or crippled or chilled in the middle of it, it cuts down its effectiveness. The real nice thing about this skill is it's got a great distance on it. So if you have a speed bonus and you're trying to escape from somebody or something, you can use Blade Trail here, Whirlwind attack here, combined with this, and get some good distance on whoever you're trying to get away from. It's usually pretty easy to escape from a lot of situations between using these two skills. So yes, the Greatsword, ever popular. Another popular weapon, the Hammer. Two-handed weapon. As you can see, with the Greatsword and the Hammer, two-handed weapons determine all 5 of your skills. There is no offhand in this case. With the Hammer, you get your 3 attacks, which deal decent damage. They have fair range. They're a little slow, obviously. It is a big, heavy hammer, but that's okay. Here you have Fierce Blow, applies weakness, which again is endurance, regeneration, and fumble for your enemy, halves damage, which is kind of nice, I guess. I don't use it a whole lot because I use the hammer in a very specialized role. And here, Hammer Shock applies a cripple to a wave of enemies out in front of you, which is nice. Here, Staggering Blow, push back nearby foes with a Staggering Blow. This is all around you in range of 130. It will knock them back. So it's an interrupt and a knockback, which stuns them for a second, which is kind of nice. And then here, Backbreaker knocks down your foe, which is great too. This is a single target, but it will knock down your opponent for 2 seconds, which is an interrupt and a knockdown. Here, AoE stun, which is nice with Adrenaline. It's a little bit of a leap, which gives you a little distance, and it's got a blast combo finisher, which is even better. And 600 range, and it will stun enemies in that range. Between this skill and this skill, you can effectively screw up a whole group of enemies for a few seconds, which is nice in things like World vs. World. So yeah, it's got a nice roll. A lot of people will use, for single target fighting with the warrior, they will use sword and shield combined with the hammer in their switch. For example, you know, their switch, like these. Their weapon swap. And what they will do is they will open with Shield Bash to stun the opponent, immediately switch to the hammer, use Backbreaker or something to knock the opponent down, and then if they need to, the opponent tries to run after that after they're dealing damage, you can use this as well to stun them and get on top of them again, so, which is nice. And by then you can switch back to the sword if you want, which again will give you the sword skill here. Savage Leap will give you another way to get in close to your opponent and undercut them and slow them down. So yeah, there are some distinct advantages to using certain combinations. Sword and shield and hammer are 2 very common combinations for people to use. Other warrior weapons that people enjoy, the ranged weapons. For example, the rifle is a common warrior ranged weapon. If you want single target damage for your warrior, this is your choice. This is what you're going to do. Single target range damage, definitely the rifle. You can trade it to pierce targets and go through. You have your main attack, which inflicts bleeding on every shot. This attack, your second attack, which inflicts a cripple. Your third attack, which is a volley of attacks, a volley of bullets, it's extremely powerful if you get every hit off with it. And it is over time, though. It is channeled. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits, maybe. Yeah, damage times 5. There are 5 hits in it, and they are very powerful. If you crit every hit in this, your opponent's gonna feel it. And then this one inflicts vulnerability, 8 vulnerability for 12 seconds, which is 8% incoming damage. Notice, the other weapons I've showed you top out at 4. This is 8, which is kind of nice. And here you have your pushback. If your enemy gets close, hit him with this, it'll knock him back for 50, which is nice. The cooldown is a little bit long for me, but 15 seconds, not too bad. And it's a quick cast too, at a quarter of a second. So if your opponent gets too close, smack them and knock them back, which is great. Kill shot is the thing everybody talks about with regard to warrior rifles. It deals incredible damage at level 3 if you were to crit with it, and if you have the trait to let it pierce, firing into an enemy Zerg in World vs. World is a good way to cause a lot of pain. I've tried it. It's nice. Rifles aren't really my thing, but I can definitely understand why people would do it. And have a preference for it. So this is your first range choice. Your second one is the bow. Here, as you can see, dual shot. It fires every auto attack with the bow. Fires 2 shots. It's nice, but not great. Here you have Fan of Fire, which is going to fire 3 arrows in a cone in front of you. They will inflict burning, and if they all hit the target, it deals fair damage. If only one of them hits, not as much. The burning is nice, though, as well. Here is one of the real draws of the bow, Arcing Arrow. It's a slow shot, but when it hits, it explodes, and it deals AoE damage. You can ground target it. If you trait for range on the bow, it goes even farther, which is great. This is your siege weapon in World vs. World. If you are being sieged in a keep or a tower or a post, and you are attacking one, this is your weapon of choice. Probably it'll let you fire over walls. It lets you hit things through gates. It lets you hit groups of enemies on walls, and the burst skill will let you ignite whole areas through gates, on walls, over walls, on ramparts, enemy siege. This is your siege weapon, probably. Again, the burst skill is nice combined with this skill as well. Explosive shot, good for single target, causes damage, causes blindness, has a little explosion. And a short cooldown as well. This cooldown, 10 seconds on an AoE explosion. 10 seconds? Not bad. Here, cooldown 25 seconds. It's an immobilize for 3 seconds, which is kind of cool. I don't use it a whole lot, but that's because I don't use this for anything other really than fighting groups of enemies from on top of a wall or targeting siege from on the other side of a wall or a door. So, here you go. And as a warrior, you have 2 underwater weapons, the first of which is the spear. You can see I have equipped now. It is the most common warrior underwater weapon that you're going to see. You have your auto attack, the last of which inflicts a cripple, which is kind of cool. And then Mariner's Frenzy, a series of strikes in front of you, which is great. It's a really nice attack, deals great damage for an underwater weapon. It's really nice. I know the damage looks low, but remember it's 8 strikes. So, and they're super fast, you'll see. Which is cool. Harpoon pull. The range on this is deceptively low. You chuck your harpoon to pull somebody back, and while it works, the range is low enough that you think it should work, and then you use it, and it turns out you're out of range. So if you can get the range down on it, it's nice, and it also functions as an interrupt if you do it right. So that's cool too. Parry, another block and counterattack, and then you gain adrenaline if you're not attacked. Blah blah blah. We know the drill. Tsunami Slash, which is the best skill with this weapon. 12 strikes at 256 damage per strike. A world combo finisher. It says spin forward and strike foes along the way, but if you hit your target or you hit a solid surface while you're spinning, you will stop and spin there and hit that target with the rest of your hits. So for example, it is entirely possible to hit a target who you have targeted. You must have the target targeted. You must have the enemy targeted. It is entirely possible to hit an enemy that you have targeted directly in front of you with all 12 strikes, and it deals massive damage. And it will also deal damage to anything around that enemy, which is great. It's a great AoE move underwater. Whirling Strike, strike all foes around you. In fact, increases with adrenaline level. It has a stun on it, world combo finisher. It's pretty nice, but not all that great. Your other choice for underwater weapon is the Harpoon Gun. The trick with this is the auto attack deals more damage the farther away from the target you are. So you want to stay at the maximum distance you can. The range is 1200, So you want to stay between 8 to 1200 range if at all possible when you're using this weapon. As you can see, it has some ways to make this more useful, which we'll look at later. We have this attack here. It inflicts vulnerability, 1% incoming damage. Doesn't seem like much, but it's on a 3-second cooldown and lasts for 15 seconds. So conceivably, you could stack several of these between 4 and 5 if you used it every time it was off cooldown. It's a really quick shot, quarter of a second. Split shot splits into a spread of harpoons that each bleed your target. The closer the target is, the more of these will hit it and the more damage it's going to do. Which is nice, but your target shouldn't ever be that close to you. Knot shot, fire shot that immobilizes your foe, 25-second cooldown, keep them at range, which is nice. You'll notice the range on this is 1200 as well as this, all the other attacks. You can use all of these at maximum range on the weapon. And this one here, repeating shot, will fire 4 shots, each of which will push back your target. Again, functions as an interrupt too, which is cool, and it will knock your target back farther away from you. It's a great skill. A 25-second cooldown, but a great skill. Here, forceful shot. Fire a forceful shot, damage increases with adrenaline level. Pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's going to deal damage. It'll hurt the target more. It's just a damaging burst skill. Doesn't really have any nifty effects that I remember. I don't really use the harpoon gun. Honestly, I prefer the spear. It does more damage faster to more targets. The harpoon gun is almost exclusively, except for this, maybe a single target weapon. But I prefer the spear because it deals more damage and can hit more targets. So take your pick, whatever you like. Warrior underwater options are really limited, but they're not bad at fighting underwater, mostly because the spear is really ridiculous. Between Mariner's Frenzy and Tsunami Slash, the damage it can put out is phenomenal compared to some other classes underwater. But nobody likes underwater combat anyway, so fuck it. Avoid it whenever you can. But some dungeons, Honor of the Waves, fucking... Some of them are like exclusively underwater, so you're gonna have to fight it eventually underwater. I recommend the spear, but as you'll notice in the character panel, you can have both of these equipped at the same time. Switch back and forth between them depending on the situation, what the fight entails. So start at range with this, deal as much damage as you can, keeping the target at range at bay, and then as soon as it gets close, maybe fire off your bleed and then switch to the spear, which is close range combat. So yeah, figure out what you like, how it works. Underwater, not great combat, but gotta do what you gotta do. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed getting a look at some of the different warrior weapons and hearing about the popular ways that some people like to use them. Like I said, this is not a professional production. This is just kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing that I decided to do today because some people were talking about it. So yeah, next time what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the warrior on the character screen, the different stats that you can get, how you use them, different skills, armor, accessories, weapons, sigils, runes, orbs, all of that fun stuff. We'll take a look at next time, as well as the different abilities and traits and all that stuff that you can get. So join me next time for that. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you later.